Hey, this is Aswalk, and this is Stellaris at the 1.5 patch, and we're going to talk about some of the changes that the patch has recently created to the game. And the cool thing is Paradox releases constantly a lot of new content to keep the game fresh, and in my opinion it's really developed this game into a classic. This is a grand strategy space game where you basically control an empire, and as we're going to look at some of these species, there's just a lot of ways you can play this game. And if you're a fan of like Crusader Kings or other types of Paradox games, I find this game to be pretty awesome. And we're going to look at one of the major changes, which is to one of my other races here. I recreated the Borg Collective, and I took some, if you guys remember from Star Trek Next Generation, you guys remember the Borg, and there have been a lot of movies about them, and they were also in Voyager. And we're going to look at some of basically how to recreate the Borg and a couple other really cool races that you can play. But if you want to play a more of an aggressive species that is more bent on domination, one cool change that the game has come out with is this idea of unity. So you used to build these sort of complacent buildings. Well, now what those buildings do is they give you another resource called unity, and that unity can actually be used to spend on tradition points, which can really help out your entire empire, which is really cool. So there's just a lot of ways you can play this game. Let's take a look at the Borg though, and we're going to look at some other species as well that I've created here that are really cool, that I think capture a lot of the game. And I have a few add-ons. So first of all, the appearance of the Borg, I picked a mammalian species for them. Species name is the Borg. The name list, I chose Hive Mind. I think this is probably a new name list that they added in. And you can remove some of that. I can remove that ISS thing if I want to. So builder, carrier, drone, offshoot, and these like sort of Hive Mind sort of drones. Automatus drone from the leaders' names, planet names, expansive cells, Delta cell, Delta colony. This is pretty cool. Some of the traits of the Borg have. Remember, the Borg are a hive mind, but actually let's go back here. I didn't even read off the this is the non-canon. Actually, this is the original planet the Borg were actually on. It's an Arctic world, and they probably were at one time a species of like sort of a million species at one time. But after a terrible virus spread throughout the planet, their only solution was to sync with the collective together, linking the minds of everyone and the planet into a single thinking entity. This gave a rise to clarity, and a queen was selected. The major drivers of the Borg are to search for perfection and add species technology and distinctiveness to their own by assimilation into the collective. The Borg seek perfection by increasing their knowledge of the universe and improving themselves to be the highest possible being. Really, the Borg are about attacking other species and using your science ships to take their technology if you really want it, so you can actually play the Borg pretty effectively. And that's really how you should play them, is actually more as an assimilation species. And there's ways to do that now with using the new mechanics of the Unity. You can integrate other species into your race, and then we can either enslave them or purge them if you want to. I used to have to be able to make these guys decadent, and we used to have slave mechanics, but now with the Hive Mind, it's usually, as we're going to cover that in a second, it's a little different. So this is actually the original world. This is the non-canon history of it. If you actually do the research, that's actually how the Borgs were created and started. The traits are, I actually picked up an add-on. That's the cool thing, is if you go in Steam, go to store, and you can go to add-ons. There's a lot of different add-ons. I'm just going to cover some of them. You guys can see here, there's fleeting, decadent, wasteful, carnivorous. You can actually pick up all these really cool additional add-ons, relic of the past. We're going to cover some more of these with the other species that are really cool. First of all, the Borg are kind of adaptive, so this just means they have ability to other planets, but remember how adaptive they become. They also, one ability that they have is they have a neural network. They really have these implants that sit in their brains that connect everyone together, and that's sort of what this neural network talks about. And it means their research speed is plus 10%. They're really ugly though. They're abhorrent. looking. They have usually a bunch of wires and things connected to them, and they're just pretty ugly. Their skin is very pale, and people are really repulsed by them, so I picked up Abhorrent here. The ruler is a queen. Remember, under the Hive Mind stuff now, they last forever. They live in an Arctic world called Koros. That's where they start. I use a plantoid city because if you look in the background, that's sort of how a Borg city would look. So they use Hive Mind. This is something new, and this is something I want to cover here. That's a part of the new expansions. Hive minds operate as a single organism more than as a state. The population has no free will. They act as an extension of the hive mind itself, much like the limbs of a body. So they use these two things called you have these really cool sublimed will, divided attention, aesthetic. You have these other. I picked up is the Hive Mind. You can actually pick up other stuff. They don't really have a natural neural network, so I picked that up. Strength of legions. You can actually pick up these other really cool ones, other cool traits that didn't exist before. Subspace, epiphase, Hive Mind's cognitive presence exists as partially in subspace, reducing the impact of time and space, and the actuation of its drones. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool creativity. But the two I picked up were One Mind. The Hive Mind takes care not to let its care of its drones diverge, which is true, which is monthly unity is plus 15%. Pooled knowledge. The Hive Mind's autonomous drones frequently share knowledge through the direct links. Remember, as they connect to the ships, they pass all the knowledge together, bypassing the Hive Mind's slower registry processes. So that's pretty cool. The Empire name is the Borg Collective, and the Borg. This is the closest flag I could make. I made it a sort of a Borg, you know, I made it a red. And we use energy weapons because the Borgs use all these lasers and so forth. They also use hyperspace travel. Now, in the in Voyager, they actually used wormhole technology to transport ships across vast distances, but through these hubs, which was very similar to wormhole technology, but we're not going to use that. And the ship appearance is just plantoid ships or fungoid ships, and I actually have a few additional ones, white and black plantoid ships. We're going to just save and just save that one. So one really cool ability now that you actually get is you actually can select the government ethics area is the most different one of all of them, and you have this interesting fanatical authoritarianism and then fanatic egalitarianism. That's something new. And also you have Hive Mind, which is new. Hive Mind disables a tutorial. What else happens here? Your Hive Mind ruler is immortal. Your Hive Mind populations are not affected by happiness and won't join factions. Hive Mind populations can not survive in non-Hive Mind empires. Non-Hive-minded pops cannot survive in Hive-minded empires. Must have AI outlawed policies. You cannot have psionic powers, I believe. You cannot follow a psionic or synthetic ascension path. Can genetically modify species to become hive-minded if biological ascension path is complete. And then you basically get a ton of monthly unity. So that's really cool. We're going to also look at some other ones in this particular section so we can see what other changes have occurred. We're going to look at the Bionic Star Consortium here next. This is a group of humans that have evolved to be, they're already sort of bionic, okay? And they want to become more bionic. So there's a synthetic path that you can choose now in this, where you can your species can become a synthetic species. It's an easy way to. So if we just look here generally at what's going on. They live in a continental world. They have they're a technocracy, environmentalist. I just picked this up because there was really no other one I thought fit them. They're xenophiles, so they like exploration and discovering other species, and they're extremely materialistic. They're slow breeders since they are bionic. They don't really feel the need, and they last a long time. They don't need to breed that much, and they're intelligent. Let's take a look at one of the changes that they've had. So they have an oligarch system. Since typically what happens is I have like an enduring species or a venerable species, I picked this up, but this is the coolest thing, another cool thing they've changed here. So you can actually pick up a bunch of really cool new traits: cutthroat politics, shadow council, functional architecture, mechanics, if you believe in like there's another race I'm going to play that actually has this, but they're really a technocracy, so they believe in research and discovery. And so this is your sort of typical starting. This would be a really easy starting one. This is sort of a neutral race, and they believe in like inward perfection and things like that. And we could actually pick that up. I think there was inward perfection, but you need to be a pacifist and a xenophile. That's really what they are. Is they are into inward perfection, but they are not a pacifist. The next ones are the timeless ones. These guys are some fungoid groups. They live forever, but they're extremely spiritual. They're weak little plants, and they're slow breeders, but they're fanatical spiritualists, and they also have the exalted priesthood. And we can go into it if you really want to. They use nuclear weapons. They use wormhole technology. So they're a very, very old species. They believe that solving problems should be figured out by using patience and time, like pretty much the passage of time, as they've survived for so long that they can just every problem can be solved with time. So they're very wise. They have an exalted priesthood. They're very spiritual, and again, I picked up environmentalists because they live on this big time tropical world, and they are plant people. Again, I couldn't find another one that really fit them. They're pacifists, and so this is a different way to play the game, and they're fanatical spiritualists. Now, one way that with spiritualism, they can become psionic. They can do the psionic technologies, and they can build these temple policies, and they don't believe in AI or anything like that. Let's cover this group right here, the Savelii Star Consortium. The Savelii they use robots, and they're similar to the Bionic Star Consortium, but they're xenophobes. And they're intelligent. They're sort of like space elves, I want to think of. So they're intelligent, slow breeders, enduring, weak, and quick learners. But what they do is they use robots and robotic armies to do attacks if they want to. Again, they're more of a neutral species, but since they're sort of xenophobic, and there's a reason why. Savelii, frail, they turn to their minds to grant them power over nature. Their species grew up, the species grew up in their world peacefully with their own kind. However, they encountered aliens and grew very wary after they discovered they were being aggressively studied. Now they are cautious of any xeno. They believe in having their machines shape their world as they explore the depths of the universe. So these guys are more like aristocratic group of people. They're very materialistic. They believe in they program the machines, and the machines do what they want to do. And so they have this mechanics. They have 4 pops being robots off the start, and they're technocracy. They have nuclear weapons. So humans originally had nuclear weapons, so that's why these guys do. And it's just kind of a fun little starting. They have great range. They use hyperspace travel. Let's look at two other really fun ways to play the game. So these were sort of the normal ways that you could play the game. The timeless ones is maybe the more abnormal one, where you could play it more of as a pacifist route through an exalted priesthood. Very interesting. The Rathram Kingdom is a really cool. I just created them. They have basically an enlightened monarchy system. Their king is a philosopher king, and they basically a group of starfish that are really weak. They're asexual, so they're pantheogenic. They're amphibious. They're weak, and they're charismatic. So they're fanatic pacifists, and they love other people. So this is the group of people. They live on this ocean world. They're little starfish. They live in the ocean or whatever. And the Enrathram are extremely peaceful and seek solutions only through peaceful means only. They have never had a negative experience with other aliens and are willing to extend helping hand if needed. They only wish to explore the universe and make new friends in peace. There has not been a war in a very long time on this planet, maybe ever. So this is a very peaceful group of people. Since they're asexual, there's no cheating, there's no nothing like people are even getting angry at each other on this planet. They use warp technology. This is sort of a standard way to play the game, but they build farms, and when you build farms now with this agrarian, if you're a pacifist, you can build basically get unity from farms. This was actually, you would think that this actually was one of my strongest group of people. You can form a federation, and you can win the game by forming a federation with other AIs. This is another interesting way to play. It would be interesting to see how the other AIs are in this particular game. The next one we're going to look at is a really cool one I created here called the Toria Empire, which means sort of new empire, or the newborns. And let me read the description of them. The newborns are an old forgotten race of a fallen empire from eons ago. So you kind of, if you want to play the fallen empire, well, guess what? These are the guys you can play. And so we're going to look at how they are, and they're really cool. For unknown reasons, they were kept dormant. Now they have emerged from the deep earth to cohabitate with plant-like bodies. Having formed a symbiotic relationship with the host plant, they are the brains of the operation, while the plant is the brawn. They are about the size of a baseball without their plant exoskeleton. They strongly believe in individualism and the freedoms of other sentient beings. Using their technology, they try to understand their place in the universe after so long. So they believe in freedoms and so forth. They're very non-adaptive after coming out of this slumber for a long time. They're very slow breeders because they're just the size of a little baseball bat. They're not like trills or anything like that, but since they form symbiotic relationships, they don't get outside their bodies too much to breed. But their exoskeleton, you could pick up something called dexterous if you want to, or multi-dexterous, but I couldn't make enough time. But what's really cool is they have, they're a relic of the past. And then they form a symbiotic relationship with the host body. And instead of multi-dexterous, which they have all these multiple limbs, they're actually strong. They live on this tropical world they've come out of after a long time. So it's sort of a way for you, this is a really cool way for you to play a sort of a forgotten empire, if you want to think about it. And they're a technocracy, so their technology is very advanced, and they have functional architecture. This was just another one I kind of picked up. They're xenophile. They like other species since they form host systems. They do have a materialistic background, which is something I kind of thought would just be kind of interesting to give them. And they're materialistic, so they can use, if they want to, they can have robots if they want to. They're just very technologically driven. This is a way for you to play, and so they have the symbol of their flag is this little thing with a shell around it, sort of representing who they are. So this has been, there's a couple other ones that are just interesting. There's Mind Flayers. These are just a couple ones I created off their beginning. If you want to play more of an evil race, and the Leviathan League is really cool, where you can play, they regenerate, they're rapid breeders, they're enduring. They're sort of playing a way to play a Hydra where you can like essentially chop off one of their limbs, and they end up coming back for you. They tend to come back for you, and there's a way I could improve it, but they hate other people, and this is a way for you just to play sort of more of a two-dimensional, where these other races are very much more multi-dimensional, and really a very long way you could play them in many ways. This is Asbog. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me walking through some of the different changes. And we look here under the government here, and you can tell some of the different changes that they've implemented in here in the game for it, making your species, and they change how governmental types work, and just how the game is improved in general, and just some of the species that you could play as, to give this game a lot of different flavors, a lot of different ways to play this game. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, comment on maybe a species that you play as, in this game. And I'll see you guys in the next chapter.